who's watching. My name is Shannon. I am a senior here at SAM. I'm in Orange Keys, and I am a communication studies major with a double minor in psychology and human services. And I am joined today with Emily. So you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Emily Binetti. I'm the Associate Director of Communications in the university's Marketing and Communications Office.
So Emily, how did you come to SAM? How did you get a job here?
I started at SAM about 7 years ago. I first started out doing marketing and communications specifically for the College of Arts and Media. And then more recently worked my way into the university's marketing and communications department. And a big part of my position is overseeing Today at SAM, also Heritage Magazine, and then handling all the media relations for the university. So when journalists and reporters want to hear from our experts here at the university, I'm the person that helps with coordinating those efforts.
Awesome, very cool. Okay, so can you tell me a little bit about Today at SAM?
Sure. Today at SAM is an online news source. And so when you go to shsu.edu to our homepage, you'll see there under the news section, boxes of photos and headlines. Those are our most recent Today at SAM stories. You can also click on the news link, and then that takes you to more stories that we have created and produced recently. And so it's basically documenting the stories of our university, the accomplishments of our university, the things that we want to share externally with the public, all the great success stories and wonderful things that we do.
Awesome. I love that description of it. Okay, so when did Today at SAM start up? When did it begin?
Well, from what I can tell, it started as an online news source in 1996. They started calling it Today at SAM a few years later in 1998. Okay. And from what I discovered, it looks like the first article, the first report of online news related to their enrollment back in 1996. The story related to how enrollment was down about 3%. Back then, the student population was a little over 12,000, so much different from today.
It is, and that kind of leads into the next question. How do you think Today at SAM has changed over the years, and even just reporting and marketing and all of that kind of stuff?
Well, in particular, Today at SAM, I don't think the goal of it has changed. The goal has always been that focus on sharing news with the campus community, bragging about what we do great. Mm-hmm. But I think maybe what's changed is how we deliver that content. It's always been an online news source, but in the same way that the website has changed as technology has progressed, and the different ways that people get their information has made it to where the website has had to change to acclimate more to the different ways that we get our information. And I think also another positive change has been that more people are reading our content because of social media. It's one of the ways that we can push our headlines out into the public and attract more readers.
Right. Yeah, that's a big change that works out in your favor.
Definitely.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier Heritage Magazine. What is that, and how is it different than Today at SAM?
Heritage Magazine is a real print publication that when you graduate, you receive in the mail. And you may also see copies of it around campus as well. Mm-hmm. And it's a great way for us to connect with our alumni base. And especially now in the new normal, it's, I think, become even more valuable. And it shows a lot of photos and a lot of activities of our college with people who may be far away and curious about what we're up to. And it also proves to be useful in sharing and bragging about our alumni base and all of their accomplishments that they do. So I think it sort of serves both purposes well. Our most recent issue included women trailblazers, and we talked about all the women, including our recent, including President Hoyt and her as our first female president. So that issue, we certainly got a lot of great compliments from. And of course, our next issue that we're working on right now will feature President White and a Q&A with her about her transition to Huntsville and what it's like serving as our next president.
That's awesome. So how often does the Heritage magazine get sent out?
We have a fall and spring issue, and then we also have a summer issue as well. And we hope to be able to continue to also have an online version. So in addition to Heritage being print, we also, as soon as it's published and sent out, we also create a digital version as well.
Very cool. Okay, so there's another news source on campus called the Houstonian. So can you tell me a little bit about the difference between that and Today at Sam and Heritage and all of that kind of stuff?
That's a good question. The Houstonian is a student-based operation, and it actually has a really rich history that goes far beyond Today at Sam. You know, it's over 100 years old.
Oh, wow.
Dan Rather was one of the editors, which is a really neat fact about the Houstonian. And it also serves as a great voice for students. They have a letter to the editor section, which is something that Today at Sam doesn't feature. And it provides a great avenue for students that want their voice to be heard. And it also shows great examples of student journalists. Now, you know, one thing that's different Today at Sam, we have 3 full-time employees that are writers, and we have 1 student worker. But at the Houstonian, it's all student operated. And I think shows as a great example of how the type of budding journalists that we have that come out of the mass communications department.
Right.
And one other thing I'd like to add is that although the Today at Sam is all focused on the activities of our campus, the Houstonian also does a great job of sharing community news as well, beyond what's happening on campus.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I love our mass communication department and just the history it has with Dan Rather coming from it, and now that he has a whole building. It's so cool.
Yeah, it is a really neat connection.
Yes. Okay, what has been your favorite article that Today at Sam has put out?
Well, most recently, if we're talking about this semester, my favorite Today at Sam story comes from our student worker, Micah Boyd, who's a mass communications major. And she covered a story on the theater production called She Kills Monsters. And it was talking about and interviewing students about what it was like putting on a virtual production. You know, these were students that normally are accustomed to performing on stage, and now they were doing something completely different in the pandemic. And it was actually quite innovative. And so in addition to Micah interviewing the professor and the director and very different people, including all the students, I think she really captured the excitement of what they were doing and how innovative it was. So I think she did a really great job with it. And beyond this semester, I think one of the most exciting stories that I did had to do with covering Dan Rather's visit in 2018 when he came to campus. I don't know if you were here at that time, Shannon, but
I was.
You were. It was a really cool event, and I was really proud of what the university pulled off and how many activities Dan Rather participated in. And so that was really cool to be able to cover that event.
That's awesome. Yeah, it just goes back to, how much mass communication has changed from Dan Rather and then to now reporting things in a pandemic and kind of documenting what our lives are like with this big change. It's really cool to be able to look back on that and have that.
Right. And I think that's one of the things that I like about Today at Sam is because we're documenting every semester the big activities and then sometimes the small activities and the accomplishments. And so whenever you have to go back and retrace history as to when was that year that Dan Rather showed up and what was it for, it kind of opens up a time capsule of information. And it's proved useful time and time again when we have to come up with tracing our steps back to something that happened many years ago and trying to remember how it all unfolded.
Yeah, I absolutely love history. And so I'm actually a tour guide on campus. And so we are constantly looking online in the, archives and at the Today at Sam articles, trying to find, the correct facts of stories that we tell on tours to our guests and trying to incorporate the school's history in that. So I look at it all the time.
Yeah, and I think that's a neat thing that the tour guides have included in those experiences, because those little tidbits of information can go a long way in making people feel at home here and feeling like they're a part of it. So I've always admired that about the work that you and others in that group do, and how approachable you all are to visitors on campus.
Yes, I absolutely love it. It's so much fun. But okay, we have just enough time for about one more question. So to wrap up, if someone on campus has an idea for Today at Sam, how can we share that with your team?
Well, from the Today at Sam website, which is shsu.edu/today at Sam, you will look for the submissions button, and you can click on that, and it gives you a little bit of details about what we're looking for, what kind of things are considered newsworthy, and what our timeline is for submitting story tips.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to chat with me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Shannon. I enjoyed it too. I appreciate sharing more about Today at Sam anytime. Thanks.
Yeah, of course. All right.